There are no excuses left for Caleb Williams, as CC mentioned, and I think that there is a ton of pressure on him and the Bears to turn this thing around really fast, and that's going to be tough to do in that division.
The show that comes on before us is Unsportsmanlike with Evan Cohen, Michelle Smallmon, and Chris Canty. And they were talking about the Chicago Bears. If you missed it, here's the conversation on how there's no excuses right now for Caleb Williams.
They've also put Caleb Williams in a position where he's all out of excuses. You got the head coach you wanted. They're rebuilding the offensive line. You got plus starters right now in that unit. And so Caleb Williams has to go out there and produce. When you talked about the Chicago Bears in 2024, it was poor head coach, game management specifically, and it was the offensive line that was scapegoated as to why Caleb Williams' career couldn't take off, why Caleb Williams couldn't show as well as Jaden Daniels did with the Washington Commanders, who went a pick after him in the 2024 draft. Now, Caleb Williams don't have no excuses. He's got the weapons. He's got a running game with DeAndre Swift. He's got 2+ receivers in Rome Odunze and DJ Moore. You've got a good tight end in Cole Kmet. You've got a rebuilt offensive line, and you've got a head coach who was the apple of everybody's eye during this hiring cycle. Caleb Williams is all out of excuses. So if the Chicago Bears finish in the cellar of the NFC North yet again, this time it's not on the dysfunction of the franchise. This time it would be on Caleb Williams.
I know we're always going to put Lamar and, to another extent, Josh Allen in a different bucket when we talk about pressure, because we have a 2-time MVP and our most recent MVP who can't break through and get to a Super Bowl. So at a certain point in the season, there's always going to be that conversation about pressure on them. But outside of those two guys who are on a different tier, I don't know if there's anybody in the NFL that has more pressure on them heading into this year than Caleb Williams, because of everything that CC just outlined. You were the number 1 overall pick that they laid in wait for years. They bring you in. They surround you with more talent than most rookies ever get when they go into a situation like that. You get the head coach that you publicly campaigned for that knows how to execute from a scheme and an offensive standpoint. They go out there and they fortify the offensive line, and they bring in a guy like Joe Thuney, who's only 32 years old, and he's a 4-time All-Pro. Oh, and a Super Bowl champion 4 times over. He knows what it's like to work with elite quarterbacks, and he can not only protect you, which Caleb needs because he was sacked 68 times last year. So they're not only helping him there, but helping him from a standpoint of we're bringing in a guy who knows what the all-time greats look like, and he can help you in that way. So there are no excuses left for Caleb Williams, as CC mentioned, and I think that there is a ton of pressure on him and the Bears to turn this thing around really fast, and that's going to be tough to do in that division.
Unsportsmanlike between 5 and 7 here on ESPN 1000. Couple things. Let's start with the first part. The first part is I don't like the connotation that the Chicago Bears or Bears fans or Caleb Williams had any excuses for last year. They're called reasons. Reasons. It's not excuses.
Agreed.
Nobody's making excuses around here about what happened with the Chicago Bears. What we explain to those that are not watching the Chicago Bears or following the story every day around here is that what happened in Washington was a microcosm of how the locker room was not together because of what happened against the Washington Commanders. From there, it's a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams in which the offense could not work. It did not work because the philosophy's changed a lot. Shane Waldron was fired before the 10th game of the season, Cap. There's a reason why. It's because there was a disconnect. If it doesn't work, you cut the cord. That was exactly what you had to do in that spot. But then you got Coach Brown in there. Coach Brown has worked closely with Caleb Williams. And, again, the confusion and the communication was bad in there. Those are not excuses. Those are reasons why that the Chicago Bears could not operate, the reason why they couldn't win. Now, on the other side, Jaden Daniels for Washington, he had peace. There was one voice. All right, it's Cliff Kingsbury. One voice, one team, one offensive line. Not all these moving parts, not all this controversy. So they're not excuses. So the idea that Unsportsmanlike puts it out there like, well, you know, the Chicago and Chicago Bears fans and Chicago Bears media, they just make excuses for Caleb Williams. No. If you just helicopter over it, you don't know. But when you have someone like me or you or anyone else around here at ESPN 1000 that's been covering the team every day, we could tell you what the hell's going on. You call from New York, I guess, is excuses. But here we know what hell it was for everybody around Lake Forest.
Correct. You had a head coach who ranked 32nd out of 32. You had a bad offensive line. You had a kid running for his life. You had the meltdowns in Washington and Indianapolis and in Detroit and a blocked field goal from beating the Packers, and you had every chance in overtime you lost to the Vikings. Like, there were a lot of opportunities to win games.
Yes.
And you didn't do it. And now it's a breath of fresh air and things are being done differently. Period.
I don't think that, again, you could tell Chris Canty an ocean of information. He only retains a bottle cap size of thought from us. It's amazing. We tell him chapter and verse everything that's going on around here, and all he sees is Jane Daniels is better than Caleb Williams. Well, no blank he was. Look at the difference. Did Washington fire their coach? Did Jane Daniels have 2 or 3 offensive coordinators? Did Jane Daniels run for his life because of the bad offensive line? Again, we can give him an ocean of information, and all he sees, again, in a myopic view, is Caleb Williams wasn't as good as Jaden Daniels.
Well, the thing that I found offensive is the Chicago media and fan base, they make excuses for him. No, they didn't.
No, it's just we just laid out the facts.
It's just reality, what he went through here. And it's truly mind-blowing when you think about it, how bad they set it up for that kid.
I said this at the time, Jay Moore, of when Justin Fields was brought to the Chicago Bears. I said, I don't think that Matt Nagy and the Bears are ready for Justin Fields, just like Fields wasn't ready for the Bears. It's a disconnect sometimes, especially with young talent, sometimes.
When it goes to things that goes on here in this city and with the Bears, Unsportsmanlike seems like they're uninformed about the fan base and about what's actually happening. You know, they just go off of these takes that, you know, the national stuff that hits that, you know, Caleb did this or Jaden Daniels did that. But I don't think they're really informed on how the true Bear fan feels about this season, this past season.
Look, I understand their platform because I did it for 5 years doing network radio for ESPN radio. So I understand that it's bing, bang, bong. What's happening in Los Angeles, what's happening in New York, what's happening in Miami, what's happening in Chicago, Green Bay, Seattle. I mean, so you're talking about a bunch of different things. JD and I did it for 5 years. But I think at some point you have to be able to say, well, here's a partner, here is a teammate in Chicago, like David Kaplan or Jonathan Hood or Tom Waddle or Yurkovich or whoever, that can be able to tell you, hey, I know that you think that Caleb Williams sucks and you think that he's, you think he's a bust already, but let me tell you the facts of what's going on here, the dumpster fire that was the Eberflus era. That's all. It's just information. But when you have your segment and you just make it like, well, Jane Daniels is better than Caleb Williams. Well, we know that part, but why? There is no digging, because when you get to takes, it doesn't matter why. It's just the take.
Evan Cohen even said that if Jaden Daniels was here in Chicago, he don't think he would have been the Jaden Daniels in Washington.
No, Blake.
He got his ass whooped.
Devin's exactly correct.
But
he'd be a dope with a B on his hat.
But there's no time for that nuance, Cap, because you got to get the takeout. Because you got to talk about the Tennessee offensive line next segment.
Right.
See? So from Michelle Smallmon's standpoint, when she talks about the pressure, yeah, there's no question. I think I expressed that to you already this morning, Cap, that I think Ryan Poles is tired of getting his ass kicked. It's the John Lester effect of saying sometimes you get tired of having your blank knocked in the dirt.
Correct. That is exactly what he said.
After a while, you're just like, okay, this is the head coach I wanted. We got some really good guys as far as the coaching staff is concerned, guys that can make a difference. You know what? I'm going to do my due diligence to make sure that I supply them with enough talent so that way they don't look bad. Period.
Because if they look bad, I look bad.
I get fired.
Correct.
Kevin Warren has his hand over the buzzer like he's on Family Feud, ready to put his stamp on it. Seriously.
Right, he is.
That's who, I mean, this is not a knock. He's an alpha that's ready to not be embarrassed. If he gets embarrassed, it's already been bad, like with the NFLPA and how the players feel about the organization. But he doesn't want to be the guy that's the face of this, doing all the press conferences, and the Bears are in the same spot.
Kevin deserves, I said this to you when they got it done, Kevin deserves a ton of credit for modernizing the way the Bears are thinking and operating and acting like a team that wants to win the Super Bowl. He does.
That's right.
That is just fair. That is honest. We never saw the Bears act this way. Well, what's the one difference? They got their you-know-what kicked in the dirt many times before he ever got here.
That's it.
And they never acted like this. I have a funny feeling that some of those meetings with George were uncomfortable, where he said, George, we got to change the way we're doing business here, man. This guy's interested. He's going to cost us a fortune. Do you want to win or not? I give Kevin a lot of credit.
So I just, I'm not going back and forth, Cap. I'm just saying that there's more than just Caleb is not as good as Jaden Daniels in year one. It's more than that. And here's the thing. Even if there was peace in Lake Forest, where Eberflus was actually halfway good head coach and the team didn't have this tumult around it, still maybe the Bears would underachieve because of bad offensive line. Maybe it would underachieve because the defense wasn't good enough to be able to get after the quarterback. These are not excuses. These are football reasons. But for whatever reason, when it comes to Chicago Bears, football reasons don't resonate. It's all about excuses. No one's making excuses. The Bears underachieved. And so now they have to try to right the ship, and they're trying to do that in this offseason. We have Shot or No Shot, but first we pause for our station identification.